Hey writer, if you're ready to level up, then buckle up. Get your pen and paper ready. It's time for another episode of the Art and Business of Writing podcast.
Hey guys, welcome back to another edition of the Art and Business of Writing podcast. I'm your host, Chris Jones, where today we're going to be talking about the P word. That's right, the P word. And before your mind goes fluttering off into the gutter, that P word is platform. We're talking about your author platform today. That's right, but not in an extensive way. I want to run through 10 areas that I've identified that you should be considering as part of your overall platform. These are things that you use every day. These are tools that you can take advantage of that are right at your fingertips or that you have access to, because I'm sure that you know people who can help you springboard into these platforms. So I won't take up much of your time this morning, but I want to say that every author needs one. Every author needs a platform, and we need it because one, if we're looking to get agents want to know that we take our art seriously. Two, if we're nonfiction, agents especially want to know that we're marketable, and having a platform shows our marketability, shows that we know our audience, we know how to reach them, we know where to find them, and our audience does engage back with us. So without further ado, let's walk through the 10, starting with number one. Number one is your website. Every author needs a website. I don't care who you are or what you've done, you need a website. Your website doesn't have to be anything flashy. It just needs to be a place where all of your work is housed. It needs to be a place where people can learn more about you. They can find your books, a place where they can contact you, a place where they can learn more about you. You can use Wix, you can use Weebly, you can use WordPress, you can use GoDaddy. Doesn't matter. I prefer WordPress. I believe WordPress is one of the best on the market in terms of providing great templates that make you look highly professional, where you're actually competitive, I think, with a lot of traditionally published authors. It also is more scalable. It's built for SEO. You have a lot of options for adding blogs or podcasts, all sorts of plugins that help you to expand your website. So I would consider WordPress. If you're not tech savvy or it does intimidate you, you can try Wix or Weebly. So website number one. And I know a lot of authors who have used social media channels like Facebook pages or even Instagram as their author platform essentially for their website. And I recommend strongly that you don't do that. Reason being is, if you can recall 6 months ago, 6 months ago when Instagram had their blackout and everybody freaked out and it was trending on Twitter that Instagram had blacked out and everybody knew about it. What if your entire author platform was Instagram based? For that entire day, people wouldn't find you at all. Or even on Facebook, if you used a Facebook page as your author website and Facebook blacked out, or Mark Zuckerberg, who's notorious for making changes, decides that he wants to charge you for the Facebook page or charge you to do things with your Facebook page at a more extensive level, then you're in trouble. Now people have to figure out how to access you. But if you have your own author website, people just have to dial in your name, johnsmithauthor.com, and all of your stuff comes up. Even if Amazon were to black out, your books are right there on your website available for people to buy. So be thinking about that. Your website as mothership, the place where people will find all about you. Number two, and these are in no particular order, public speaking. I'm a big fan of doing this. I'm a big fan of, if I've got subject matter expertise, I want to find a way to share it as much as possible. I think every author who has subject matter expertise should definitely kind of hop the speaker train. Find areas where you can speak, find groups you can speak to, find organizations who will let you speak. Find someone who can use the knowledge you have and present it to them. Lots of people love having guest speakers, and you can find them every day. So with my book, The Art and Business of Writing, where I tend to go to schools. I go to middle schools, and I talk to them about communication and writing skills and why writing skills are important to life. I go to writing groups and talk to them about how to market as a writer. I speak at writing conferences. So as you can see, you can find places, if you start to think about the subject matter within your book, you can delve into various subsets of the topics that you dive into. I can talk about leadership through communication. So there are a lot of different things. So sit down maybe with a piece of paper and write down all of the things that you can discuss as subject matter expert, and all the organizations that will allow you to talk about those things, and places where you can build your email list through contacts that you meet there. Next, number 3, writing on credible websites. Now, when I think credible websites, I think about something that's in your industry. So for me, as a person who writes about writing, I would be wanting to write on places like Medium, of course, which is a great place to meet other writers, but other people who may be influenced to write. I could write on Writer's Digest, Poets and Writers, The Writer, all these different websites that cater specifically to writers. Or if I want to talk about the business aspect of writing, I can write on Inc., I can write on Entrepreneur, I can write on other business-related websites and talk about the business side of writing. So be thinking about places where you can build a catalog of bylines that show your subject matter expertise online. Number 4, podcast and media interviews. This one, I can't overstate this in any way. You need to be doing this if you have a book. Finding ways to get onto shows and talking to people's audiences about the work you do. I have a podcast, as you know, you're listening to now, and I've done that with lots of authors. I'll find authors and I'll bring them on, or authors will ask me to come onto my show, and I typically don't turn anybody down unless the subject has been done too much in the past or it doesn't really fit what I'm doing. But looking for places where you can share your subject matter expertise. Once again, one of the quick tips that I recommend that you do is find authors who are similar to you, Google their name and podcast, and see what shows come up that they've been on. That's a really quick and dirty way to see where you fit. So for me, if I wanted to find places to do more interviews, I would type in Jeff Goins podcast. And then I would, of course, his podcast would show up, Hey Creator, or Portfolio Life would show up, but then it would show me all the places where Jeff Goins has been a guest as a podcast speaker. Or even if I typed in Joanna Penn podcast, of course, Creative Penn would show up, but then it would show me all the other places where Joanna Penn has been a guest. And you can also do that inside of the podcast app. Type in, a creator's name, Jeff Goins, Joanna Penn, Michael Hyatt, whomever, and see all the interviews that they've done, and then get the name and email addresses of those show creators and pitch to them that you can do interviews very similar to guests that they've had in the past. And you can share your subject matter expertise much the same way you would pitch an agent, but just to a lower level where you're just talking about the subject matter expertise that you can pitch that can benefit their audience. But I'll always go to how what you have will benefit their audience. Not that you want an interview, not that you're a great interview, not that you've got something that they may want, but how you can benefit their audience. Next up is having your own podcast. Another way to build a platform is to start your own podcast. Figure out, again, who you're talking to, what your audience is, what your subject matter expertise is, and then build a platform around that, whether you do solo casting, which is just you sharing tips and tricks like Tim Worlberg does with Just a Tip, where he focuses on just helping podcast creators, or whether you do an interview-based show, which is what I typically do. I do a combination of a hybrid of solo and interview-based. But starting a podcast, and podcasts don't have to be long. Tim Wolberg's episodes are about 5 minutes a piece. I've seen a guy, Engel Jones, he's got one called 12-minute conversations, and his are just 12-minute talks. They're 12 minutes long. Some people go much longer. Some people can go 30 minutes or an hour. I tend to like shorter podcasts for the most part. Sometimes I do go long if I feel like the guest has something to say that's very valuable to my audience. But yeah, starting a podcast, and it's not very difficult to do. Pat Flynn, if you go on YouTube, you can look up Pat Flynn and his podcast formula and how he gets started. John Lee Dumas has a platform builder for podcasts that teaches you how to build the platform and all the stuff you need. So the information's out there. You just have to go do it. Next, your email list. You can sign up for ConvertKit. You can sign up for MailChimp. You can sign up for MailerLite. You can sign up for Aweber. Any of these these email hosts will give you a free platform for the most part. And so what you want to do is you want to be able to create this email list based on some sort of freemium you add to your website. And so maybe it's giving away a chapter of your book. Maybe it's giving away one of your older books in its entirety. Maybe it's giving away a checklist or something related to what you do that your audience would appreciate. Give them something in exchange for joining your email list, and you'll have people kind of flowing through the gates to get that item in exchange for their email address. Building an email address does one thing that social media does not. It gives you a captive audience. Whereas social media, it can feel like you're trying to fight against algorithms and you're talking into the void. Your email list allows you to talk directly to the people who opted in. So if I speak, an email out, if I send an email out and I'm speaking to 152 people on my list, then I'm sending it to 152 people on my list. Maybe they don't all open it. My goal is to always have an open rate of at least 25 or higher. I've been trending up more towards 40 to 45%, which is exceptional. But that's what you want to do. You want people to open it. So the bigger your email list, the more direct access to the audience you have. Again, unlike social media where people do follow you, but they don't always pay attention, people on your list are there because they want to hear from you. They go in there and they actually put their name and their email address into the box and they send it off. So they want information from you. So make sure you deliver. Next, social media. Now that we can talk about social media, here we go. So with social media, you've got Twitter, you've got Facebook, you've got Instagram, you've got TikTok. There's so many different platforms you can use. I recommend choosing one to start and really just drill in, like dive in and figure out all the things you can learn about it, figure out how to use it, the ins and outs, how to connect with people, how to create conversation, how the platform works in terms of how it shares information, but become very versed in one platform and build it really strong and then move to the next one. So maybe you start with Twitter and you build your following up to 4,000 or 5,000 people, and then you start sliding into Instagram and building that one up, and then figuring out how Instagram works and how its algorithm works and what kind of content people want on Instagram. Then you can go from there to Pinterest and do the same thing. So figuring out which one to start, that's up to you. Depends on your audience, depends on what you're very good at. But I definitely recommend using the ones you're good at. And then if there's ones that you're just not good at or not sure about or just really are averse to and don't believe your audience is there, leave those alone. You don't need them all. For me, I'm very much on Twitter. I work with Instagram. I do not work with TikTok at all or Snapchat. So it's up to you. But use the platforms that you're comfortable using and build those up very strong. Next, YouTube. And while many people do lump YouTube into social media, I tend to leave it out. It's a little bit different than a social media channel. I look at YouTube as an educational hub, essentially. And so just like interviewing on a podcast or doing public speaking, YouTube gives you the power to do those two things together in a sense. So if people aren't asking you to speak, you can speak on YouTube yourself and do your own videos and share your own stories and share your own tips and advice and things that are pertaining to your subject matter. And if you want to do YouTube channels, I definitely recommend go for it. Give it a try. Your videos don't have to be perfect. You'll get better over time. Much like with podcasting, it takes time to get really good at it. But invariably, people love YouTube. It is the largest search engine after Google. So people are there looking for stuff. They want to be entertained. They want to learn things. And people are very, very responsive on YouTube. People are very fanatical about it. They love YouTube. So if you become a YouTube creator and you start to develop an audience on YouTube, you stand a very good chance at building it up very well. So, and with that, I'd recommend definitely just planning your videos, like knowing what you want to share, how you want to share it, all those things. So YouTube is another great place to develop your audience and build your platform. Next, webinar hosting. So you can use Zoom. I mean, everyone's accustomed to Zoom conferencing right now. And so you can use Zoom now and you can start your own webinar series. If you want to do one a month or two a month, just start a webinar series. There are a lot of people who you can model from. ACES, ACES, the American Copy Editors Society. They do monthly webinars. A lot of writing groups do webinars, but you can learn how to do webinars even on YouTube and then start your own. So thinking about some of the topics you can talk about, you can bring people in and have your own webinars, have Q&A sessions, have AMAs where people can come and just ask you anything. But the name of the game with webinars is it does a couple of things. So with webinars, one, it's a public speaking opportunity technically. because you're creating it for yourself, but you're speaking to an audience. 2, it's very much like a podcast or a YouTube video where you're imparting some education or knowledge on people who want it. 3, it's massive list building. So for people to join the webinar, they have to give you an email address to get access. So it's a triple threat medium. And so thinking about, can I do one of these a month realistically, or one every other month? But using webinars as audience builders, because they do help you in many ways, more than just the actual medium itself, again, helps you to build your audience in other areas and develop your platform in other areas. But also, people love to learn, and they love live learning. So being able to give them that opportunity, if you're a particular subject matter expert, it goes a long way. And lastly, your book sales or your book catalog. This is one that, of course, agents are going to look at. Do you have previous sales from anything you've done? If you don't, that's okay. But if you do have books on the market, can you continue to sell them? Can you find ways to resell them? Can you keep them going? That's always one great area of your platform, is showing that, hey, I've had a book on the market before. I've sold it pretty well. I've got a good audience from it. So being able to do the proof of concept through book sales. So there you have it, guys. Those are 10 areas of platform. I recommend, again, you start with 3, maybe 4, and start to build them out. Definitely develop a plan for each one. Know how you want to use each one. Don't do it very haphazardly, but really be focused and deliberate in each platform. If there are other platforms that I might have missed, or other areas that you think would qualify as platform, be sure to reach out to me, Chris, CHRIS, at chrisjonesinc, that's INK.com, and let me know your thoughts. You can also comment on the post when it goes up, and that would be at chrisjonesinc.com/095. All right, guys, happy platform building. Hopefully this was insightful to you, and we will see you next week.
How's that for inspiring? I hope you take action on one thing you learned in today's episode. If you haven't subscribed to the podcast and left a review on iTunes, I want to encourage you to do that too. Finally, be sure to visit chrisjonesinc.com to sign up for updates. Don't worry, I won't spam you. And we'll see you back here next week for another episode.